Hey everybody, it's Ellie, and today we're talking about the short trek Calypso. Now, to start with, Calypso is a mythological demigoddess who held Odysseus captive for 10 years on her island Ogygia during Homer's Odyssey. The short trek Calypso is a 15-minute retelling of Odysseus' time with Calypso, but with more consent. So, the broad strokes for those of you who don't remember your other Homer: a soldier is returning home after spending years off fighting a faraway war that he seemingly wanted nothing to do with in the beginning. He ends up shipwrecked on an island with a mysterious, powerful, yet ethereal and non-mortal woman.
Oh dear, you thought I was alive?
Calypso. She beguiles the soldier with her strange powers and knowledge.
What's a Tuesday?
And even though he is mortal and she is not, she wants him to stay with her. But the mortal soldier misses his wife and child, and so she ends up helping him build a ship and continue his long, perilous journey home. Now, in the short trek Calypso, we have a soldier returning home from... I'm not going to do it, but you get the joke. It's the exact same story-ish, but with Star Trek stand-ins for our main characters. But who those stand-ins are and what they represent can give us more context. And context...
Context is for kings.
So, it seems pretty obvious that Kraft is our stand-in for Odysseus, but let's look at some fun details anyway. One of the first things that we learn about him is that Kraft has an old hunting scar on his leg that he keeps as a memento. Odysseus has an old hunting scar on his leg that's revealed when he's being cleaned by his servant when he first enters his home still disguised as a beggar. Quote, "She drew near and began to wash her lord, and straightway knew the scar of the wound which long ago a boar had dealt him with its white tusk." And of course, Kraft's back tattoo of the Cyclops owl is a nod to the Cyclops that Odysseus faced and so craftily escaped. See what I did there? When Kraft misses his coastal home, Zora plays him the sounds of waves and water birds. Calypso's home is described as, quote, "Around the entrance a wood rose up in abundant growth. Alder and aspen and fragrant cypress, birds with long wings roosted there, owls and falcons and long-tongued sea crows that have their business upon the waters." When Zora first asks his name, Kraft gives it as Quarrel. Now, Quarrel as a surname derives from the same word root as quarry and means a family that lives near a stone formation, like a quarry. The real-life island of Ithaca, the home Odysseus is trying to get back to, pretty much consists of 2 slabs of limestone, so anyone from there could reasonably give the name Quarrel, but it's super generic. He kind of just said his name is John Smith. It's clearly not his real name, and everyone knows it.
Liar.
Later, when he gives his name as Kraft, Zora makes a crack about how it's because he's so crafty. But even though the legendary Odysseus was known for being crafty, the name Kraft actually goes back to medieval knights and was associated with strength and courage. But again, super generic. So this time, he just said he was Private John Smith. During his time on Ogygia, Odysseus spent his days weeping on the seashore, missing his family but being unable to leave despite the sea being right there. Kraft spends his nights missing his family in the transporter room, which is the Star Trek equivalent of the seashore. I mean, sure, you could just start swimming from the shore, but you're not going to get very far. The same way that you could just beam yourself off the ship, but again, not get very far.
Shaka?
And at night, Calypso would force Odysseus to sleep with her against his will, whereas Kraft is forced to spend his days hanging out with Zora because he doesn't really have a choice. She's the whole ship around him. In fact, Odysseus never really gave himself to Calypso willingly, just like how Kraft never gives his true name to Zora. And this central conflict of captive romance versus familial loyalty comes to a head in the climactic dance scene where, once again, Kraft refuses to give himself to Zora. Alright, now let's take a look at Zora's role as Calypso. When we first meet Calypso in the Odyssey, we only hear her voice singing while she weaves cloth at her loom with a golden, which often means magical, shuttle. In the space within, there was the goddess herself, singing with a lovely voice, moving to and fro at her loom and weaving with a shuttle of gold. The first time we meet Zora, we only hear her voice, and then she magically synthesizes clothing for craft. Calypso was confined to her island as a punishment from the gods, much like how a higher authority commanded Zora to stay put in her nebula.
But I was ordered to maintain position. I have no choice.
In fact, part of Calypso's punishment is that every 1,000 years, a great hero, capital H, would wash up on her island and she'd involuntarily fall in love with him. However, being a great hero, capital H, his duties and obligations would compel him to leave no matter what she did. So no matter what she does, she will never have his love, and eventually he will leave her, heartbroken and alone, for another 1,000 years, until it's time to do it all over again. Eternal friend zone. Brutal. Now, Calypso was actually the daughter of the Titan Atlas. And Atlas wasn't always just the guy holding up the sky. He was ancient and skilled in math and philosophy, and he knew the deepest secrets of the world. He was credited with the invention of astronomy as well as the creation of the first celestial spheres. So not only did he figure out how to look at heavenly stuff, he gave us heavenly stuff to look at. Quote, "Whose father is Atlas the magician. He knows the depths of all the seas, and he, no other, guards the tall pillars that keep the sky and the earth apart." Now, where have we seen a recent character who was super ancient and full of boundless knowledge about math and astronomy and the deep secrets? I mean, someone who might even be considered to embody the modern meaning of the word atlas, as in a trove of information about one's surroundings. Oh yeah, the sphere. Yeah, that'll do it. Calypso's mother was the sea nymph Pleione, the protectress of sailors, and her name might sound familiar for her other daughters, the Pleiades, also known as the sailing stars. Now, these 7 red stars, are special because they can be seen from almost anywhere on Earth, and as a result, just about every culture has its own story about them. In Greek mythology, they were the 7 sisters of Calypso who needed to be saved from the unstoppable hunter Orion by being transformed into the 7 red bursts, the 7 stars that make up the constellation of the Pleiades. And while Zeus was able to move the sisters in 3 dimensions to save them from an unstoppable hunter, we were able to move them in space and time in 4 dimensions.
This is the power of math, people!
So I think that makes Pleione, wife to Atlas, the protectress of sailors, mother of the guiding sailing stars, the discovery herself. Oh, and going back to the Pleiades for a second, in Siberian folklore, the 7 stars are 3 hunters pursuing a bear, led on by the star Alcor in the form of a bird. Oh hey, Alcor is where craft is from. Now, in the Odyssey, Calypso has to be coerced by the gods to let Odysseus go after holding him captive for
10 years.
Whereas Zora helps Craft leave because she knows it's the right thing to do, even though it will hurt her. But I suppose that's the difference between a demigoddess and a Starfleet officer, because after all, we are Starfleet, and we do not allow desperation to destroy moral authority.